that we weren't quite sure how we were going to fix, or if we needed to fix, and we don't. So that project is closed out on the roofs. So I sent a memo earlier this week to Deb Gould in accounting to take our leftover authorization and set up a fund, well, set up an organization within the fund to start a project to replace the gym floors at Hyman, Fine, and Hill Roberts. So my intent is, and Mark has already sent a proposal, is to use Mark and Port Construction Consulting in a similar manner to the fire department roofs to do, assist with the designer selection and provide mini OPM services of sorts on the gym floors.
One, we don't have to do a roll call because we're all here. We don't have to do roll call votes. Wonderful. Record reflect that everyone is here except for Andrew, who called in that he would not be here. And we have Mark Zawatsky with us. And also, I think remotely, we have Arno Skalski, if I pronounced his name correctly.
Yeah.
There he is.
Yes. Hi, how are you?
Hi. So the purpose of our meeting tonight is to pick up where we left off 2 weeks ago when we got evicted from the room. And I won't say anything further. Therefore, Arno, what have you been doing for us?
All right, well, we advanced the documents from the design development to 90% 90% complete for your review, which had been forwarded to Jeremy and Mark. And so we're a few details or a few things away from finalizing the documents. One of the big things that I had mentioned last time, and we'd had to do some more research, but we determined that we do need to do some supplemental framing for the small roof, which we're calling roof D, at the fire headquarters building, because it just won't support the snow loads based on the new roof assembly. So that
Arno, can you share your screen and show us where you're talking about?
Yeah, I sure can. Okay, can you see that?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great.
So are we talking about headquarters or Briggs Corner?
This one's at the fire headquarters.
Okay.
But just so everyone knows, this right here is the cover sheet to the bid document set. Again, I mentioned the set 90% review. So this right here is our demolition plan for the fire headquarters building. Just to give you a reference of how we're laying out the roof areas and labeling them, we are labeling them consecutively between both of the stations. So, and I'm going to turn to the Briggs in a minute just to show you that. But the large roof here is we're labeled at A, the administration building B, the equipment building in back will be C, and then what I was referring to is a smaller roof in back, which is labeled D. And I'm going to come back to it quickly because I just want to show you the Briggs.
Help us to orient. Where's Union Street?
Union Street would be out here, right?
Okay.
On the left, to the left of the sheet. So right here is where you have the fire department sign on that roof.
If you're familiar with the building, B is the one where the kitchen is.
Okay.
Building B is where the kitchen is, right?
The garage is A.
Correct. Vehicle bays.
Vehicle bays, yes.
The vehicle bay, correct.
Okay.
Just quickly, Briggs Station, and out here to the top of the page is Parker Street. So we're just or because we're looking at this as one project, we just continued the labeling of the roof so that we can combine some of the details between the two buildings. And this will be the large apparatus bay is E, and the smaller roof area is labeled F.
Okay, and that's at Briggs Corner now.
Now that's at Briggs Corner, correct?
Okay, and so Park Street's on the left again?
Nope, that's at the top of the page.
Oh, okay. You said Parker, I think, so that's what.
Park Street, I'm sorry, yeah.
Okay.
So just to go back to roof.
Problem in D?
I'm sorry?
We have a structural problem in D?
We do have a structural problem with D. And let me bear with me. Let me bring up a photo on that. And I can show you a little bit as best we could photograph this.
While he's looking for that, Mark, do you concur that there's a structural problem there?
I concur that their structural engineer did an analysis. We did 2 field trips out there. The first one was to do all the test cuts, all the investigatory work relative to hazardous materials and the roof itself, the section up through the roof. While they were out there, the structural engineer was there. He had an initial concern over a couple of areas, and they came back in a subsequent time, did more of a detailed survey and investigation, and then Arno recently advised that this area D required some level of structural reinforcement. This roof at D looks as though it was added on at a later time, perhaps when the kitchen was. It's different than all the other work. It's not a metal deck. It's not a concrete system. It's a wood frame deck. And it's because of the wood frame deck and the age of it that as we add additional weight because of the additional roof systems, the structural engineer has concluded that we need to reinforce the roof in order to support the loads to be in compliance with the codes.
Okay.
And there's a picture of the.
So this, yeah, this is a picture directly under roof D, adjacent to the administration building. I don't know, can you see my cursor?
Yes, we can.
Or my pointer? So this is the joist. It's a 2x8 joist, and then you have ceiling framing, 2x4 ceiling framing just below it. So you've got some added extra weight that's hanging off those joists. So once you put on the new roof with the increase of insulation, it increases the snow load, and therefore the capacity of those joists are compromised. So they do need to be supplementally framed in.
Okay. What else can you tell
We were
us?
analyzing, there's a beam in the back that supports the opening into that space. We did have concerns about that initially, but once our structural engineers did the analysis, they determined that the beam was fine. So that's a good thing.
Any other significant findings from your investigation?
So the next issue we have, and I'm going to go back to the, well, let me go to another photo here. Bear with me 1 second. So at roof E at the Briggs station, I think I'm on the wrong set of. Okay, can you, no, you can't see that one. Okay, so this is, you can see my new photo at Briggs Station. This is in the apparatus bay, which is underneath what we're saying, roof E. And these are the, you have steel bar joists that support the metal roof deck. So what we were concerned about that initially, and that's why we went back out there. We were able to obtain some identification tags. We weren't able to locate who the manufacturer was, but our structural engineers did some research with the steel joist industry and found some information on these bar joists. One of the things that we found is that they are undersized. The span is greater than the allowable depth. Typically, I think these are 18-inch deep joists, but the span is over 40 feet. And typically, you'd want to see a bar joist that's at least half that in inches. So usually those would be at least 20 to 24 inches in depth. So doing our initial analysis, those bar joists are undersized, particularly since we will be adding, an increase in insulation, which will also increase the snow load on this roof structure. So these bar joists do need to be reinforced. And we're not sure 100% what we're going to do with them just yet, but we have to come up with a design for that.
Okay, Mark, do you have anything to add to that?
Sure. Within the overall project budget that was prepared by CBI, they had allocated an allowance for structural improvements. There were two separate line items, one for roof D at $25,000 and one at roof E, the subject photo, at $50,000. So there's $75,000 of allowance for structural reinforcements of these two roof segments that are contained within the project. So Arno, do you have a probable cost or an opinion for these?
Right Yeah, right now I'd stick with the $75,000, I mean, the $50,000 budget that we had for that, until we come up with a final design. But we did something similar at a school in Lynn, and that's what we based our budget on.
And do you feel reasonably confident that the 25 and 50 are adequate to cover these costs based on what you know?
I believe so, yes. Yep.
Thank you.
Can I just ask, with the picture we're looking at, was this a change in codes, or was this just something that was not designed properly to begin with? Do you have an opinion on that?
Yeah, well, one of the things about these are very light bar joists, and they're sized right to the right on the edge, so they're never oversized or I should say engineered to optimize any future weight that might be applied to them. It's just it was an economical roof structure. They're very light, and they're not supporting what the current code allows. So
are you saying that they were adequate for the roof that was put on?
At that time, this building was constructed.
I couldn't hear you. I'm sorry.
At the time the building was constructed, Arno said that it was satisfactory at that time, but now that we're adding more of an imposed load, now that there's greater safety factors, now that there are other impacts to it, they need to be reinforced.
Okay, understood. Any other issues you want to bring to our attention before you tell us what you're proposing to do?
I think those are the unknowns that we weren't quite sure about. Some of the things you weren't probably planning on doing. Other than that, I think we're the rest of it's just going to be a standard roof replacement, tearing everything down to all the various roof decks and going back with a 1/4-inch tapered insulated EPDM membrane roof system that'll be all adhered. Let me go back to the drawings.
Arno, could you talk a little bit about the results of the hazardous material survey?
Oh, my apologies. Yeah, we did discover some hazardous material. So on roof A, we did find some residual mastic or adhesive from the prior built-up roof system that's no longer there, but there is residual mastic that's on, or adhesive that's on the roof deck that is does contain asbestos. However, because it's adhered and it will be encapsulated by a vapor barrier and then the subsequent insulation and roofing membrane, that can remain as is. It does not need to be abated. At the brig station, along, if you can see my
Before you leave that, would the workers
pointer hand,
who
I'm
are
sorry.
covering this have to undertake any special procedures?
No, it's just the awareness thing that it's there, and there's no need to scrape anything off that roof deck because it is loose. It's ballasted. The insulation is loose laid, so there would be no reason to nothing that you'd have to scrape it up and disturb it.
Now, what I mean is, you said it was going to be encapsulated.
It would just be awareness.
So it's a residual mastic that's on the existing roof deck.
Yeah.
When they remove the existing, what I believe has been stated is that it's non-friable material. The contractor just needs to be aware of its existence and its presence, but because of its existing condition and the fact that it's going to, once the roof is exposed, they're going to immediately encapsulate it again. There's no unique or special requirements required according to CBI.
And there's no hazardous waste disposal that we have to take care of?
Correct, not at that area.
Okay, when you said not at that area.
Arno, are there any other hazardous materials on this project?
Yes, at the Brigg Station, there was mastic found on the through-wall flashing between roofs E and F, which is this wall right here. And that, because we are doing some flashing work there and we'll be disturbing that area, which could potentially create a friable condition, that will need to be abated. In addition to the asbestos at this location, at both buildings, there's wood trim along the perimeter of the roof edge that is just below the drip edge. We are recommending that that be removed and be replaced. And in doing so, there is some lead paint on that, on the wood trim. So that'll just need to be, again, that's an awareness specification, but that material will need to be legally disposed of. Now, you don't have to, scrape it off or remove it. You just remove the whole board and dispose of it properly.
Suggesting that we remove this because of the lead paint, or are you suggesting we remove it because it needs to be replaced and there just happens to be lead paint on it?
Yeah, we do need to replace it because we're raising the edge because of the increase in insulation. So therefore, you're going to have a wider board along the perimeter.
And then,
and it's wood. It's a maintenance item, and
would you describe to us? Would you describe to us what the project is going to consist of? What kind of a roof are we putting on? And
sure.
And then give us some time frames as to how long this is all going to take.
So what we had proposed and recommended and are designing is let me go on to the next. So we're designing as I mentioned previously, a fully adhered EPDM membrane roofing system. You're going to see right here that I had included 90 mil EPDM, but in discussions with Mark, what we're going to do is actually bid this out using 60 mil reinforced EPDM membrane, which you can obtain a 25-year warranty. And the 90 mil will include as an alternate, an add alternate to the bid, where at that point you can achieve a 30-year warranty.
So just to take a pause, what we've discussed between Arno and myself is that we believe it's in the best interest of the city of Attleboro for the roof project, for its base bid to be an industry standard 60 mil roofing system on top of the multiple layers of insulation, the hardboard and the dense glass and the vapor barrier, that will provide a 25-year warranty. As an alternate, we are planning on soliciting a price, unless otherwise instructed, to provide an alternate price for a 90 mil thick EPDM rubber roof system that will enhance that warranty from 25 to 30 years. And then we can make a financial analysis as to the benefit of that thicker, longer duration roof warranty.
Okay. And EPDM is?
It's a 60 mil thick rubber, black rubber roofing. Industry standard. Probably more than half the flat roofs in the country have this same identical material.
Okay. In other projects, we have put white roofs on.
Correct. So in the schematic design narrative, Arno, perhaps you want to discuss the schematic design narrative where you actually looked at all those different alternative roofing systems?
We did. We looked at a variety of roofing systems, including PVC, which is a thermoplastic membrane, as well as a TPO, which is also a thermoplastic membrane, as well as a KEE type of PVC membrane, which has an enhanced chemical resistance, as well as EPDM and modified bitumen. So just to let you know, modified bitumen is somewhat similar to a built-up roof system. It's a much thicker roof. It's layered. It can come in two layers, 3 layers, or 4 layers. But it's a very heavy roof, very expensive roof, and it's a little bit overkill for this type of roof application. You would look to use a modified bitumen where you might have a lot of roof traffic, and we wouldn't anticipate there's much roof traffic on either one of these stations. In looking at PVC membrane, that's certainly an option. It's heat weldable seams, as well. It's very similar to thermoplastic olefin, which is referred to as TPO. And those are in white, or they do come in light gray and tan. And that's certainly an option that you could have considered. However, EPM is one of the more economical membranes. It's also equally as durable as a TPO or a PVC. And typically you do use white roofs. If we were in a southern climate, it would be very advantageous to use a reflective membrane that you get out of PVC and TPO, but it's not as it wouldn't be a requirement here in the Northeast because you have more warming days than you have cooling days. So you don't get the benefit of you don't gain any benefit by using a light colored or reflective roof here in the Northeast. So that's why we are recommending that the preferred roofing system be a EPDM.
Can I stop you there?
And there's a lot of contractors. There's a lot of contractors that put this down. They put it down every day. So it's just a very common roof here in New England.
Arno, at our high school project, both the current roof that we're constructing and the one we did, I don't know, 5-8 years ago, whatever it was, we used a product, I think it's called Sarnafil.
Yeah, that's a PVC membrane. Yep.
And that was white. And we had 5 acres of roof over there in the old school, and maybe not as much in the new school, but a lot. Is there a difference in cost between the PVC and the EPDM?
There is a slight difference in cost. It can range. It's certainly dependent on the thickness and warranty type, but you're looking at anywhere from 20 to 50 cents a square foot difference.
Which way?
Meaning the Sarnafil PVC is that much more expensive.
And what would...
We've got about 12,000 square feet, 10 to 12,000 square feet. So if it was 50 cents, then it would be an added $6,000 material cost. But the school roofs and other high traffic roofs where you have a lot of mechanical equipment, these roofs virtually have no mechanical equipment on them whatsoever. Access is extraordinarily sporadic. So, and your school buildings, new, generally, NE chips or LEED certified, and so these buildings are built to a higher standard, a newer standard. The building that we have here is a 100-year-old building, at least on the HQ side of it, and a la 1980s or so over on Park Street. So the point being, the mechanical systems, the heating system, the air conditioning systems, these are very unsophisticated systems, older systems, and the heat loss through the walls. If you look at a building from in its total building envelope, the roof is one aspect. The four walls obviously have much greater wall area than the roof. So if we were to put a TPO or a PVC roof system like a Sarnafil on this building, you might have a Cadillac of a product on your roof, but then the four walls, there's no return on equity here. There's no payback to that additional $6,000. And the reason that you might put a TPO or a PVC roof on high traffic areas, et cetera, just don't really exist in this building. So the schematic design narrative that was put together weighed all the advantages and the disadvantages and the cost factors, and based on that, the architect and his team made a recommendation to the city for the EPDM. You can, you can say, well, we want all of our roofs in the city to be all Sarnafil, or we want them all to be TPO or PVC, and that's fine. We just didn't know what you are doing citywide, or if you had a roof plan citywide.
We do not, but I also know that, we've gone with the white roofs on our last two roofing projects, and so I think this is an appropriate point for commission members to weigh in.
Exactly.
And Mike raised his hand, so go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, multiple points, and I appreciate the points you brought up. I'm just getting a little confused. First of all, I really wish this commission at one point would vote that we're not going to accept contractors to do Zoom meetings. There's something missing when these Zoom meetings come in. We're all sitting here in person. They're talking. Jack's trying to ask a question. They're not stopping talking. It's just, it doesn't work for me. I want these contractors in front of us so we can actually, they can present in front of us and we can ask our questions in an orderly manner. And I know that might be a pet peeve, but it's just, it bothers me the last couple of times.
You're not the only one in the room feeling that, Mike.
Right. So I think the commission can do that. I know the governor has allowed, the municipalities to, raise their proper judgment on these things. But I think we also have an ability as a commission to say, no, this is what our expectations are if you're going to present to us. I think the biggest question I'm having with this is, correct me if I'm wrong, I was under the impression that we're fixing these roofs because they need to be done right now. They've been needed for some time. But we do have plans in Attleboro. We've actually put in front of the city council a feasibility study to have a new public safety complex done. So when we're talking about 25 and 30 years and this is what you should do for that, well, then I kind of look at it in construction and think, well, do we want to get to 25 or 30 years? Is that what we're doing with this project, or are we trying to solve an existing problem and make sure that they have the fire department buildings that they need? But I don't know if we should be looking that way. But it seems to me that they're looking way long term about, this will last you forever. I don't think that's the way the city of Attleboro is thinking about these fire stations. When they talk about, the weight of the, adding to the bar joist because of the added weight of the structure, I'm just kind of wondering why you wouldn't strip the whole roof then. So then you're...
We are. Let me answer both of these questions.
Okay.
First question, we need to comply with the code. The code requires, the energy code requires that we have a certain thickness of insulation. Warm air rises. As it rises, it cools, and if wet and cold enough, it rains. So, Physics 101. So what we have is we have a situation where these buildings, even though the walls are old, and the walls may not be properly insulated to today's modern standards, much of the heat is lost through the roof. And what we have is a situation where in both buildings, the roofing systems have absolutely failed. The Park Street, far worse than the one at the HQ, but they both leak, and they leak like a sieve, and they're impacting fixtures, equipment, fire department equipment, tens of thousands of dollars of radios and other elements. So yes, I agree with you. The roofs do need to be replaced, but we need to do so in accordance with code. So the vapor barrier, for which there is none in the existing building, we need a vapor barrier. We need a dense glass, we need a deck. We need insulation, it has to be tapered for the flow of it to the roof drains, and then we need a roof covering. So the cost of the EPDM, the thing that you get your 20 or 25 or 30-year warranty on, is the top 060 or 090 thickness of inches. All the other costs are fixed. If you're going to replace the roofing, you have to do everything else. What you put on that very, very top layer is one of the most inexpensive parts of this project. So we can't just do it wrong. We have to do it right. We have to do it in accordance with the building code. So that's what, and it just so happens that if you do the system, you get a 20 or a 25 or a 30-year warranty. It's just part of, we get a 90-mile-an-hour basic wind speed. We're not asking for the bells and whistles and say, give us an extended warranty for 120-mile-an-hour wind speed. As they pointed out during the interview process, there's no return on investment, there's no bang for the buck there. So we're giving you this industry standard system that meets code.
And thank you for that.
And if I could add
But
one
when
more
you're talking
point,
vape- I'm sorry, go ahead, Jack.
doing an ad alternate, going from the 60 to the 90, that doesn't cost us anything. I mean, if it turns out that we can get the better roof for an extra $1,000 and get the extra 5 years, maybe we would or wouldn't. I think another point is that even though we hope that we can build a public safety facility, I don't know when this community will embrace that and pass a debt exclusion. And so we have to be mindful of that. And finally, these buildings might be repurposed if we do build a public safety facility. There might be some other use. We might end up turning the fire headquarters into some sort of a maintenance garage for one of the departments. I have no idea. So the idea of that you're raising, I think they're very good points, but I think we ought to be mindful of the fact that we are protecting our investment in a particular building. Spending the extra money to get to a 30-year roof as opposed to a 25, I would have hesitancy about that unless the cost was so cheap that it didn't matter. But those were some thoughts that I had in response to your question.
And I appreciate that, Jack. But what I will say is that a building of this age that we're talking about on both of these, if you'll notice that any of the buildings in Attleboro, especially on the school side, the old Attleboro High School, the Finberg School and all this, they are not being repurposed for anything, because to bring them up to current ADA codes and stuff like that, it doesn't make any sense to. It makes sense to tear them down and start new.
Yeah.
So I'm just using that as my criteria in my head when I'm looking at these buildings that are quite old. I mean, that used to be the way. That's not the way the Commonwealth wants to go anymore, especially in green communities. They don't want you driving, they don't want you in old buildings, they don't want you in old cars anymore. And when you start talking about, and Jerry can relate to this, when you start talking about adding to a bar joist because of a vapor barrier that is basically a vapor barrier, it's just plastic. The insulation board is again, I mean, a 4x8 insulation board, I think an 8-year-old could probably pick up a 4x8 insulation board. That's how much they weigh. So when I hear about that has to be retrofitted to fit all these new codes, and I get once you open something, you need to bring it up to code. I totally understand that. But when I hear about all this added weight and just what it entails, a vapor barrier and insulation board, I don't know if it justifies that. And
Well, we're going from this much insulation to 7 inches of insulation, and those additional 5 inches over 10,000 square feet of area, or over the square footage of that area, does necessitate a review by our architect. They've got errors and omissions insurance, they've got millions of dollars of insurance, and if this building, after the very first snowstorm of the new building, of the new roof being put on, were to have a catastrophic failure, guess who's getting sued?
sure,
They're following their professional
I understand,
responsibilities.
and I understand, and I appreciate
And it's
that.
the cost of doing business. And look, off the record, I say, I totally get you, man. But here, we have to follow the process and the procedures and the protocols. And unfortunately, the city owns this asset. It's leaking. It needs to be repaired. I believe that the documents that CBI has put together are fair and reasonable and appropriate as a solution to what's been presented. We can talk about the thickness, we can talk about the TPO, but we really can't talk about wavering from satisfying the code requirements. The building official won't allow us. He won't give us a building permit to do something that isn't in accordance with the code. And as your consultant, I'm telling you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear.
And I can appreciate that. There's been a lot of things I've heard from consultants over the last 15 years that I've done on the committee that actually went back in our face after when we had leaking roofs, so I can understand that aspect. I just want to make sure that we're not spending an elaborate amount of money on something that is only meant to be, in my opinion, a short-term solution to the current problems that they have. Because I do not feel that these buildings are going to be of use of anything else after the fire department no longer uses them. I mean, that's just my opinion. I'm just looking after the taxpayers part of this. I get what the code is. I own a construction supervisor's license. I totally get that part. But what I will say is we need to keep things in context. I mean, and that's what we're supposed to be doing here. We're supposed to be, asking the questions to make sure that we're getting what we want and we're not getting something elaborate where the building's being torn down in 7 years but we have a 30-year warranty on a roof.
Right. No, I
just doesn't make
I
sense.
totally get your perspective. I mean, the question that I might ask if I was on the commission or prior to the start of this project is, well, let's look at our community master plan. Let's look at what the goals and objectives are for these areas. Let's look at the fire department plan. I mean, Park Street Fire Station is several miles away from where your HQ is. Does the city's fire department plan talk about consolidating all the fire stations into one public safety complex, or are you going to continue to be remote? Mm-hmm. So Park Street's probably going to stay there unless you build a new HQ somewhere over on that part of town. So I think that you've raised a terrific question. I just don't know we're talking about what's in front of us, and if you want to go back, that's fine. It's just that we have a project, and the goal here was to get to a point where we can go out to bid and get the roofs replaced before more damage this winter. One of these roofs is just being held on, I don't really know how. Another big windstorm, another few rainstorms, and it's going to be a real problem. It already is a real problem. So I get it, and I understand your perspective completely.
Yeah, I think we all do. So, Gail, do you have any questions or comments?
No, I can see Mike's point for sure, but we really don't have a master plan or when this future public safety building will be built or if it will be built. So, I say we have to fix the roofs the way it is. We really can't do anything about it. Can't change that expense. It's unfortunate because I absolutely agree. Like if we're going to build a new public safety building in 10 years, this is almost like a waste.
Well, can I go back and ask Mike and ask you, Gail? Do you have a preference for the white TPO, a white EPDM, or the black, more cost-effective EPDM roof that was selected by the architect based on all the advantages and disadvantages and its cost factor and the mechanical systems that are there and the heat load in the winter versus the cooling load in the summer and the nature of the equipment that's there? I mean, I thought that the architect did a really good analysis, came to a conclusion, and then is now presenting that conclusion. So one of the things that I think Jack had asked for was your opinion on the selected material as being the EPDM coating.
I'll let Gail speak first. I have an answer for that, but I'll let Gail speak first.
I don't think the color makes any difference.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
What's
I mean,
most
we have no
cost-effective.
uniformity in the.
I mean, to add to something that
city.
Mike said, I mean, they may or may not build a public safety building, but that's probably going to be a minimum 10 years from now. So, I mean, you're going to eat up half of your warranty almost right there. Regardless of what happens, what the city does with those buildings, they're probably going to put them out to bid, and it makes the buildings more valuable if they've got a decent roof on them as opposed to something that's going to dump a bunch of money in it to make the thing waterproof. So,
I think my opinion on that, serving on the school committee at the time, I believe it was 8 years ago when we put the roof, because the roof back then at the old high school was so failing, when the decision was made, and I don't even remember what was the difference between the black and the white at that time. I'd be lying if I told you anything different. You guys presented that tonight. Now I know the difference, but I didn't at that time. I think we were so grateful at the time to finally have a roof that wasn't leaking and it just happened to be white and it worked, that we said, geez, maybe this is the way to go, because we've had such a problem in Attleboro with failing roofs in our schools. And it comes back to haunt you time and time and again when you go and do these $1 million projects and then the roof leaks, 3 or 4 years after. So I think that's what the consensus at that, in my view, of why we felt the white was this actually worth.
Right.
I don't know, Jack.
It's part of a total building solution, not just an individual building element. And so that white roof, that high reflectivity, is designed to keep the building cooler in the sun, in the heat of the day, to reduce HVAC loads. But the interesting thing is, the MSBA, the School Building Authority, they're giving you reimbursement to the tune of how many cents on the dollar?
Well, they're paying 125 and we're paying 135.
Okay, so you're getting about just under 50% reimbursement for the building, and here you're paying for everything. So the question is, do you want to pay the full freight, or do you want to pay the full freight or a premium to get the upgraded thermoplastic resin or the TPO?
Mark, I wasn't suggesting that we do that. I just knew from experience that the last 2 roofs we did were the Sarnafil white, and I just wanted to hear an opinion as to whether we should be adopting that for this project or not. I ask questions for a living, and so I that's what I do, and so I like to have as much information as we can have when we make a decision, and so that was why I asked that question. I'm not wedded to anything. I just want to know what the answer is.
Right. And forgive me, I have no dog in this fight. If you want to, first of all, Sarnafil is a trade name. It's like
I
Xerox,
understand that,
Kleenex.
but I just knew that I just remembered that name.
Understood. And it is a proprietary product, and so if you were to specify Sarnafil, you're going to get a proprietary product. If you specified a TPO, then you open it up to other manufacturers. So depending on whether or not you want the added expense of a white high reflectivity roof,
I'm not interested in adding expense to anything.
Okay.
And I'm hopeful that at some point we're trying to sell this building to somebody who wants to turn it into something else because we have a new public safety facility. But as Jerry said, we could easily be 10 years in the future on that project, and so we need to protect our investment now. Anybody on the right side have anything?
I have a comment.
Sure.
I live right near Briggs Corner Fire Station. In quite a few years ago, they closed it to save money.
Yeah.
So, you had fire trucks coming from downtown, further down. So that ended the city, and then they were closing the Norton fire stations, and that's a very wooded area. So I can't see them putting an emergency center probably in the center of town would make more sense logistically.
Yeah.
And then the fire trucks trying to go down almost into Norton.
Yeah, what is the likelihood that we maintain some remote fire stations?
I would
for
have
a
an
quick
issue if
response
they
time?
close that station.
Yes.
Well,
Whether it be, if I'm still here 20 years.
that's one of the things that we were hoping the feasibility study would address, is what is the future of the fire department? Is it to have 4 fire stations or 2 or 3? Jeremy, if you want to address that.
I can address a couple of those. So first of all, the closing of the Briggs Fire Station years ago was like a staffing issue, and it's kind of beyond the purview of this committee. There was a communication to the Municipal Council Tuesday night on our attempts to bolster fire department staffing and bring our levels from 15 per shift to 18 per shift. So closing the Briggs Fire Station is not even on the radar of something the administration is thinking of. We're actually thinking of bolstering staff, not cutting it. On the location of the public safety complex and what the mesh of response times for fire department stations looks like, exactly as Jack said, that's why it's one of the questions we want to ask. So what makes the most sense, because it works right now, is locating it somewhere close to where it's located right now, and then responses don't quite have to change. The location for the police headquarters is less important in relation to everything else, because they are on patrols and out there all the time. They don't have the response time from a physical location like the fire department does. And like Jerry had said too, 10 years is optimistic on when we would do something like this. So
Very optimistic.
and as I understand it, you can't quite build a 15-year roof. You go in and you put in the roof, bring it up to code in the industry standard, and what you get is a 25-year warranty or a 30-year warranty on that kind of last layer. But regardless of what you're planning to do, if you're replacing a roof, you're replacing a roof, and it's not like we can wait 10 years before we get a new building before we do anything on this roof. So from the administration's perspective, we're marching forward with replacing these roofs, and we're marching forward in a generational plan to put in a joint public safety complex. But we see that as a both and, not an either or.
Right.
Jackie, do you have anything to add?
I'm just thinking of that 10-year. Boy, that sounds good. We talked about a new high school in '98. In case anybody wants to figure that out, that's almost 25 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So that roof had to be replaced. If we replace these roofs now, the public service building, I don't think the feasibility study was even approved.
No, so we're talking about a $500,000 project, give or take, for these two roofs. We're talking about a $100,000 project just for the feasibility study, and then we're talking about kind of a not yet known tens of millions of dollars for a joint public safety complex. So if we're talking about a larger, maybe a building envelope project, a total retrofit of something else, if we were talking about a multi-million-dollar project right now, I think the administration, before even getting to this stage, would have kind of pumped the brakes. But this reasonable amount of money, which we are funding from free cash, and we are not borrowing at all for this project, we're using both free cash and already borrowed funds from similar economic life projects that we can roll into this. So this is not new debt for the city. And in terms of other projects, we're doing kind of a relatively small dollar amount, although $500,000 is not a small dollar amount. So yeah, we're marching forward with it, and I wouldn't say the ship has sailed because we haven't gone out to bid and we haven't done any of that, but we're committed to it.
Great.
Ed, do you have anything you want to add? Okay.
So, Mr. Chairman, a couple of other questions just in terms of process. So, Arno and his team, as he indicated, they're at 90% documentation.
Right.
Subject to any.
I did want to talk about timing and all, so I think that's what you're going to.
Well, I have about a dozen really quick comments to make.
Okay.
So, first of all, we're at this 90% level. Arno identified at the beginning of his discussion this evening about what he needs in order to bring it to 100%. We need the prevailing wage documents from the state for this jurisdiction, the hazardous material specification, and just to narrowly define the hazardous material scope, the bid date. So when the documents would be available, when we would advertise it in the Central Register, when we would have the pre-bid conference, and when the bid date would occur, would all be, I guess, would be delegated to Arno, myself, and with Jeremy as an administrative staff function. The item that I think you can be particularly helpful here is within the 90% documents, CBI has included AIA contracts, the A101 and the A201. Their boilerplate that they incorporated into the template or into the manual was the 2007 version of the AIA A101 and A201. There has been an update to those documents in 2017, and the latest and greatest version of those documents is the AIA A101 2017 for 2017 and the 201 for 2017. My question is, does the city have any preference over which contract document we use?
Yes.
2017.
The city solicitor has come up with some fairly standard AIA document revisions, and so I think that through Jeremy, we ought to ask Cindy Amara to take a look at this sooner rather than later.
Yeah. Right.
We've used 2017 on the most recent projects we've done.
Okay. And if the city has boilerplate template language it wants, I would recommend that, Jeremy, if you would be so kind as to speak to your solicitor and have her send over to Arno the template for the A101 and the A201 with the city-specific language.
Yep.
The next item is the tax exempt certificate. If you could provide the tax exempt certificate to
Yeah.
Arno.
You could do that tomorrow. Yep.
Next item is Arno had included, CBI had included that once a notice to proceed has been issued, work would commence, and that the work would need to be completed within 60 calendar days. So Arno had put in a 60-day timeline, construction work in the field, and if the contractor was unable to fulfill that, he had liquidated damages at $500 per day.
I think we use 1,000, but the city solicitor should have that, right?
I will confirm.
Okay, so the warranty, I know we've discussed the warranty quite a bit. CBI has written into that this is NDL, no dollar limit, meaning that in the event of damage, or maybe Arno can talk a little bit more about what the nuances of the NDL or no dollar limit warranty are, and whether or not there's a premium for that. That might be helpful for the commission's review.
Sure. The no dollar limit provision within the warranty, in the event that they have to do some work or replacement work, meaning the manufacturer due to the failure of the membrane or the workmanship of the installation, it doesn't limit the amount of money. Say it costs, $400,000 to do all these roofs, and they happen to fail, and you didn't have the no dollar limit clause, then they would limit the amount of money that they would contribute to a replacement of the roof to that $400,000, not taking into account inflation if that replacement was, say, $450,000 or $500,000. So it's just a stipulation within their warranty.
So is the no dollar limit also not prorated? A lot of roof warranties that I've seen are prorated warranties.
You'll find that with shingles.
Okay, so in addition to that warranty,
Well,
the
warranties can cover two different things. One is the repair or replacement of the roof itself,
material.
and just the material and the labor. But what I didn't understand his answer was is this prorated or not prorated? So if it fails in 5 years, do we only get 3/4?
No, it's not prorated. And that's what I was referring to. If the cost of the repair or replacement was in excess of the original cost, it would pay for the current cost to replace that roof. So it's not prorated.
And not prorated the way it is sometimes with appliances and other things. So
That's right.
And then my other question is, does the warranty cover incidental or consequential damages? Does it cover? It does not. It just covers.
None of them do.
Just replacing the roof itself, not the stuff that got damaged because of the leak.
That's right.
Okay. I'm not saying that we want a warranty that does that. I just want the public to be clear that that's what the warranty is.
Right, and you would never get that from a manufacturer.
Okay, so go ahead, Mark.
That dovetails in with my next question, which is within the four corners of the 90% documents, it also talks about a 2-year labor warranty or the installation warranty. So can you identify what would be part of the manufacturer's no dollar limit warranty versus the 2-year warranty? Because you list both, and I have an idea as to what it means, but I'd like for you to explain it.
Sure. We are asking for a 2-year labor and material warranty from the contractor. It not only covers the roof, but it covers other work that the roofing manufacturer would not cover. So that would be like where I had mentioned where we're removing the perimeter wood trim around the fascia. that would be covered for 2 years. Understand, the roofing manufacturer does not cover that wood fascia. So there's other, components to the roofing project that are outside the manufacturer's warranty. But the roofing contractor is on the hook, if you will, with the roofing manufacturer for 2 years themselves. So they're responsible to make any repairs due to their workmanship over that 2-year period. So the 2-year just sort of dovetails between the manufacturer's warrant requirement of the contractor, along with what we're asking for a warranty on the project.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. Isn't 1 year standard? Is this 2 years is enhanced then?
It's slightly enhanced, yes. I mean, frankly, all of our projects, we require a 2-year warranty, even sometimes on masonry
To make
restoration.
sure I understand, because I
So
thought that in the construction industry, 1 year was standard.
It is standard, but you're not going to see, frankly, you're not going to really see a cost impact due to asking for 1 more year.
Okay. I agree. Good. Thank you.
Particularly in roofing projects, they're already on the hook for 2 years with the manufacturer.
All of the other items that I have, I can
Okay,
address
so-
administratively with Arno. I just have one other question for the committee. And Arno, perhaps you want to bring up the very last detail on sheet 9, I believe. It has to do with the chimney. There is an existing chimney at the headquarters. It doesn't work, meaning there's no mechanical system connected to it. It exists though. There it is right here. That's my finger. And when it was constructed, that very top course of brick was improperly, it's the wrong brick. You don't put holes in there because then water can fill up, it freezes, it expands. It's a real problem. And there's no cap over this. However, there are 3 antennas connected to it. So my question is, within the 4 corners of the documents right now, that chimney is supposed to be demolished, taken down below the new roof, covered over with a plate, and insulated and re-roofed over it. And the contractor, whoever he or she may be, would have to reinstall the antennas on the roof some way, somehow. My question is, we could save a few dollars, but have another roof penetration and just place a cap over the chimney. What's MDC's desire?
So as a non-contractor, I would say, why wouldn't we? But I would like to ask some people like Jerry or Mike if they have an opinion on that.
If it's not being used, I'd take it down. It's no work to take it down. I mean, we're talking a few $100s to take it down and patch the roof in, and it's one less penetration you have for a possible leak. All 3 of those antennas currently being used?
We believe so.
When you say we believe so, that's not 100% accurate.
The fire department didn't know, but through the actual antenna, you see these cables right here? They're all live. So it's being used. I mean, I believe that they're being used. I don't know what they're for, but they're currently connected to an electric source, and they're currently connected to it. Whether or not they use those frequencies or use those antennas, or whether or not they're an older remnant, I don't know, but those cables, that electrical connections, look fairly new.
So how can we find out?
City electrician, run some continuity tests.
I don't think there is such a person.
Not quite.
Is this something the fire department can figure out?
I'll speak to the chief.
Okay. Because listening to what Jerry and Mike have to say, the fewer roof penetrations, the better off we are, right?
I agree.
Right, so what we would do is run a sleeve through the roof, a penetration that would be 4 inches in diameter as opposed to being, 2 feet by 3 feet. And all the wires would come up through that penetration and be connected to those antennas if they are active and live, and if they're not, they can be abandoned. But either way, we'll end up with 1 small penetration instead of 1 large one. So Currently, the drawings, the specifications, the plan is to take that chimney all the way down and run a new sleeve and a penetration through there for those electric cables. I just wanted to verify that you wanted to do that, because, you know, it is $500, you know, plus or minus.
Well, but the fewer roof penetrations,
The
the
better we are.
$500 has to be worth it. And in fact, now what I'm wondering is, would you even need to put sleeves for those antennas? Could they be, for instance, fastened to the wood fascia or something that, you know, in a way that we wouldn't have to penetrate the roof?
They could be. We might be able to reroute them and place them on the back side of the building or somewhere. That happens to be the highest part of the roof. So we'll find out what they are, and we'll find out where they need to be, and we'll try and omit the sleeve if we can.
That seems reasonable, right? Mike?
Yeah, definitely have to concur with that. I mean, you know, the lead flashing is where you're probably gonna get more leaks than anything. So if you're just gonna make that one penetration with a boot, that's what we should be doing with this. The other question is, I feel like I'm in line at Circuit City. So when you're talking about a 2-year warranty, is the cost of the warranty, how does that compare to what it actually covers? Because now we're saying we're covering the roof, but now you're suggesting that we take out an additional 2-year warranty on incidentals,
Mike,
I guess.
Mike, it's not an additional 2-year warranty. What they're saying is that the non-roof itself, the other work, they need to give us a warranty on that work. The standard is 1 year. To get a second year on that work is no additional cost. So they need to give us a warrant, the contractor, on the construction portion of it,
And that's
as
where all the
opposed to the
leaks are.
roofing portion of
The
it.
leaks are in the installs.
Right. So
It's very few that it's the actual material that,
right, it's the workmanship. This is the
Right.
contractor's workmanship warranty. And because these are roofs, one of the specified requirements is that the manufacturer of the roofing material, let's say, as an example, this was a Firestone roof or a Versico roof or whatever manufacturer, their designated RRC, registered roofing consultant, their designated manufacturer's agent, not a salesperson, would have to come out and watch the flood test, watch this, look at all the seams, see the overlaps, and come out there during the course of construction, at start of construction, at 50% of construction, and at the final portion of construction. That's how you get the manufacturer's warranty, to ensure that it was installed per the manufacturer's requirements. The warranty from the contractor is, hey, we did everything right, not just install the rubber roofing, we put the flashings in right, we put the right amount here. And if in the event that you get a leak in, you know, at 16 months, then they own, regardless of what it is, they own to come back and address it, independent of the manufacturer. Because the building, the roof could leak, not because of the roof.
could leak in 5 years.
Like the flashings. But you're gonna run into another situation, because like, let's be clear, the headquarter building has numerous other needs. The brick needs to be repointed, and, you know, just like you had, as you talked about earlier, at one of the schools, the leak wasn't through the roofing system, but was through the brick or the other surface material. I can envision a situation where February, you call me up and say, what the hell, Mark? The roof is leaking. And I go, well, it's probably not the roof. It's probably wind-driven rain through the brick that hasn't been repointed. So let me just say, there's other work to do. You know this, at the headquarters building and at the Briggs Corner, in order to maintain the buildings, because right now they suffer from a level of deferred maintenance that needs to be addressed.
But that's beyond the
scope.
mandate that we were given by the mayor and council.
Right.
All of that is true, but we're all gonna still have to respond to it when water's intruding into the building, but it's not coming from the roof. Just saying.
I can't imagine that at a city project.
Yeah, I was just thinking that. How many roofs, like 10 years later, they're leaking?
Yeah, thank you, Jack. So, just a couple of things that I see on this, and unfortunately, I'm in charge of a building that was built recently in Attleboro, and it had its issues. And there are some of these things that we've talked about tonight. And I think we have to make very clear when we're talking about warranties or craftsmanship or whatever, I dealt with this with Barry Lacasse. At the end of the day, it was more of, well, who's going to be the point person? So the roof is leaking at 101 Land Street. The roof is under, the building is under my daily purview. But it just happened to get missed. It was superintendents, changing over at the time. And so there has to be some one point person where if there's something wrong with that roof, is it the fire chief who deals directly with who? Or is it Jeremy? Is the fire chief contact Jeremy? Jeremy makes that initial note, goes back to who do they go to? Because we all stand there, we're all pointing fingers, and we're all saying, well, the right process wasn't followed. That's why we're 9 months down the road of a problem. So we need to figure that out ahead of time. If there is a problem with these roofs and with the warranties that we're expecting, how does that, what response does that initiate, and who's in charge of that?
Yeah.
That's very important.
Let me just say that the issue you're bringing up is one that's been discussed in the city for a time now, because each department head is in charge of their own building. The librarian's in charge of the library, et cetera. And Jeremy's probably going to tell you that there have been numerous discussions about creating a building maintenance department,
including last
with
week.
somebody who's citywide in charge of all the buildings, instead of saying that a school's principal should be in charge of a building or a librarian should be in charge of a building. That's a bigger issue than we can solve right here, but it is an issue.
It's an excellent point, and it's something that the city desperately needs. It's something that the mayor, the personnel director, myself, and other mayor's office staff had a discussion on just last week about how we approach preventative maintenance and building, asset inventories and levels of service across the city. And like Jack said, the recreation director doesn't know anything specific about HVAC in his building and how to, maintain it or get it, I guess, in his situation. And, when do we determine to replace the carpets here or repoint the Shang building, or questions like that are definitely not being addressed in a timely manner. And it's more of the squeaky wheel sorts of things once a roof leaks and some radios get ruined. So to answer the question right now, the point person is Chief LaChance for all the fire department buildings, which then gets raised to both my office and the mayor's office, and any corrective measures that need to happen either happen through this committee or happen through my office as a capital project. Which is not the ideal way to address this, but it's the setup that we have with the staff and the budget that we have right now. It's the medium-term vision of the city and the immediate-term concern of Kathy Okowitz in the mayor's office to get somebody in this citywide role. So it's something we're trying to do, something we want to do, but right now, yeah, it's your building, you're the department in the building, you're the point person for it.
So you've raised a whole bunch of long-term issues tonight, Mike, that are extremely important to the city.
The fire department's gonna beat me up if they have to watch this meeting anyway. They're gonna think I'm against it.
So-
I'm not against it. I just wanna make sure that we're spending our money properly because it is taxpayers' money. I'm sorry. but that's-
You are 100% right, and an actual building maintenance department, Dennis Walsh is a great guy, I love him dearly, but he wasn't hired because he knows roofs or HVAC systems. He was hired because he knows how to run recreation programs. And so that's a default position that we've run into. When Mark asked earlier, what's the city's roofing standard and plan? Well, the answer is there isn't one.
It's these people. It's you guys.
It's whatever we decide to do in our best judgment when the mayor and council tell us it needs to be addressed. And that's not a good long-term way to run a business or to take care of your inventory of buildings. I agree with you.
So, Mr. Chairman.
So let's go back to what I think is the single most important question. We want to be done by Christmas. You said 60 days. That means that the notice to proceed has to occur by at least November 1st, right?
Well, long before then, sir. What the desire is, Arno, how long will it take for you to get from 90% documentation to 100% bid set documents so that it can be advertised in the central register so that we can begin the bid process? Because right now, we're several weeks behind the original projected aspirational timeline. So how long is it gonna take?
Well, with some of the structural design work we need to do, I probably need about 2 weeks.
Okay, so we can come up with a calendar that begins to advertise within 3 weeks.
So that would mean somewhere in mid-August, we would be putting this out on the street?
Right. So we put it, so my question to you for the MBC is, will we need to convene again to review the 100% bid set documents? Or, based on my recommendation that the 90% documents are really good as it relates to the roof plan, all the details that are reasonable and appropriate, and that by addressing the 2 minor structural improvements and the specification for the hazardous material, and getting the few little pieces of information that we need from the state or from the city, can we advertise this and go out, and if there are any questions on behalf of the MBC, we could address them via an addendum during the bid process? Or do you want to meet again?
No special meeting on the 11th.
I am comfortable with not having to have another presentation, but I'll defer to you people. Are you comfortable that, if he takes it to 100% under Mark's supervision, that you can put it out to bid?
I agree.
Okay, so, because our next meeting is August 4th, but, so if it goes out on the street in the middle of August, when would we be receiving the bids?
Well, 3 weeks from now would be the week of August 9th. So we would advertise in the Central Register for 8/11. Arno. Central Register comes out on Wednesdays, right? So that means that we need to have the request to the Central Register sometime during the week of 8/2. You need to forward that to them during the week of 8/2 to get it onto the register for 8/11. And then Arno will come up with a calendar that talks about a pre-bid conference, probably a week after the Central Register, or a week to 10 days, and then another 10 days thereafter. So we could conceivably receive bids, as early as September 3.
Okay, so let me suggest to you that our regular meeting is September 1st. However, we have moved the school building committee from the 8th to the 15th. So do we want to move our meeting from the 1st to the 8th and be in a position to review bids on September 8th?
That'd be great.
Yeah.
I will say, to get in the register by 8/11, we need it, I believe, 8/11 is a Wednesday, 8/5 is the Thursday. I believe we need to be in the Thursday before. And Arno had said 2 weeks to get from 90 to 100, and 2 weeks puts us at the 4th. So it doesn't really give us a lot of
wiggle room, but we can advertise, we can make the notification of the Central Register even while he's finishing up and putting the, dotting the i's and crossing the t's.
Okay.
So I
Yeah,
think
we'll finalize it so it's ready for that first thing Wednesday morning.
Okay.
So do we want to move our meeting then to August 8th so that
September.
bids can be in
September.
September 8th? So that what day would we, and the 6th is Labor Day, so what day would the bids be received? Would we
I would say Friday the 3rd.
Friday the 3rd, okay? And then, so we will move our MBC meeting from the 1st to the 8th of September.
Yep.
And we'll just have to, Jeremy will let Evan know for the library requisition that we've done that. And we will be in a position to hopefully be able to recommend to the mayor executing a contract at our meeting on September 8th. And if we were to do that...
We were supposed to meet at the library September 8th.
No,
August 4th, we're meeting at the
August
library.
4th.
This library.
Okay, I have the wrong date then.
Yeah, August 4th is, we're meeting at the library, Jerry. That's our next meeting. So the meeting after that would be September 8th. So Jeremy, if we made a recommendation to the mayor to accept a contract on the 8th, would we then basically be in a position by around the 1st of October to give a notice to proceed to the contractor?
Yeah, we could definitely do that by October.
And that would mean that they would have October and November to do this work, and we would be done closer to the 1st of December than to the last of December.
Right, so, for my own edification, if we met on the 8th of September, what is the intervening activity that goes from the 8th of September, where you make a recommendation to the mayor, to October?
It won't take that long.
Okay, and because the process that we think we should employ is a letter of intent or a notice to proceed while we're finalizing insurance and
Well, I'm not
contracts.
sure whether
It
the
wouldn't be a
auditor
notice.
will.
Yeah, it won't be a notice to proceed
No.
until we have everything
Okay, so,
in order.
Yeah, we gotta have the contract signed and the insurance certificates in place and all, and that's why I said that 3 weeks. It might be 2 weeks.
We can do a notice of award, right?
But the thing I was trying to get at was that if we give the contractor October and November to work in, that's better than November and December.
absolutely, yeah, that's
And-
ideal.
And therefore, this project would accomplish the most important goal, which is to, before the weather got bad, to be done.
And the only other so I agree with all of that, the process, the timeline, everything appears to work. The only potential hiccup to this is, as Arno has previously identified, right now, a lot of these manufacturers are on allocation. There are intermittent shortages of different building components. Prices, lumber has come down drastically. It's not quite back to where it was pre-pandemic levels, but there is a possibility that Arno has indicated that he thought that the potential premium for doing the project this fall would be $35,000 or up to 7% as an escalation. However, it is after the schools, it's before the end of the year, and someone who maybe didn't get as much work or has some material or is on allocation. So there is a concern that the bidders will say, I can't do the project this fall, I just don't have the material. If, however, you allow us to do it next spring, we just don't know
But
what we don't know.
the cost of
waiting.
going through another winter with, first of all, inflation occurring, and second of all, damage to the buildings.
Right.
That doesn't sound like the right thing, does it?
No, we agree. The cost of waiting doesn't make sense to the city. That was previously discussed and confirmed by this commission. The issue is what level of responsiveness will we receive? We won't know until we
Yeah,
go
we don't
through the
know.
process.
We don't know.
So the worst thing that can happen is we only get 1 or 2 bids. They're crazy. They're qualified.
Then
or
we'll
they're
have to
not
figure out
proper.
what Plan B is, but
Exactly.
I think at this point, and there are no filed subbids on this job?
Arno, no file.
There are no file subbids.
And would it be a general contractor or just a roofing contractor posing
It'll
as a
be a-
general contractor?
Yeah, it'll be the general contractor will be DCAM certified in roofing.
Right, so it'll be a DCAM certified roofer. However, he will own the miscellaneous carpentry, he'll own the miscellaneous masonry repairs,
Yep.
and any other work.
Okay, so it sounds like the one wild card here is the
The unknown.
bidding climate, the availability of roofing materials. That's nothing we have control over. So are we all comfortable with the timeline that we just talked about?
Yes.
I'm seeing everyone nodding. Mike?
Just a question about this, and I think Jeremy or even Gail could answer this. I'm not sure who does the central register for capital projects. Is that still Carol, or do you guys do that?
Yeah.
So I think you need to check with Carol to make sure that she's not taking vacation time in this tight. I hate to say it that way, Carol. Hopefully you're not home listening.
I know she's
I just want to make sure that she doesn't already have planned time off, and then
She
it's
does
going
not.
to for a while.
She does not.
Time off. Okay. And I think the second question is, I don't know if it's legal or not, but a couple of my bids for vendors stipulate in there, because of the materials cost fluctuation that we're dealing with industry-wide right now, can we put a cap on that in the contract documents, that it's 15% or something above?
You're talking about a situation where there's force majeure, where a contractor bids the job and then says, oh, by the way, I can't find the material, or the material cost has escalated such that I need additional compensation. There's no time delay here. They're bidding it, and the work needs to be done 60 to 90 days later.
They're just gonna give us a price. The
Right.
price could be a lot higher than we want, Mike, but they're just gonna give us a price.
And then it's up to us, as the city, as to whether or not they want to accept it or not.
And what the consequence
just a-
would be of not
Just a
accepting.
question, I mean, a couple of mine, they can only charge me 15% over actual cost of the equipment.
Right,
That's,
but
it's
it-
written in their contract, so I don't know if that's something with these costs going crazy.
I think the actual cost is the issue here, is that the costs are so high. And so what we're running into because of the shortages, they're going to bid based on material costs now. We're not gonna see an uptick, an up price in labor costs. We're gonna see it on the material side.
Yeah, and we're gonna see somebody who can get the material and do the job, because they're not gonna bid on it if they can't get the materials, right?
Right.
I think that's the biggest problem, is that the bidding universe may be smaller than otherwise because of who can get the materials.
Yeah, I'm hopeful that we'll get at least 3 qualified bids.
Well, and if we don't, we have the right to reject them all and rebid it, but our experience with that has not been good.
A process question: who's ordering the prevailing wage sheets? Do you need me to do that? Are you doing that, Arno?
I can certainly do that, yep.
Okay, and I guess we were given a budget sheet.
Right, so previously, we talked about what the overall project budget, well, actually what the construction cost was. So Arno, back on the 7th of July, indicated that the projected probable cost for this project with contingency is $493,000, of which the premium, there's a $35,000 premium included because of any delays or cost escalations or deferral.
Okay,
So,
and Jeremy, what's our budget?
We had 460,000 in construction right now. I just made a note to myself to check that tomorrow. We have I believe, $50,000 contingency as well.
Okay, so we've got enough money to do the job based on this budget.
We're tight, but yeah.
and there was an allowance of $75,000 within here for the structural improvements and hazardous materials, so hopefully,
And-
Right, there's also a $20,000 contingency that I put in there, so.
There's a $20,865 contingency as well.
Okay.
So we've got a few conservative contingencies on top of contingencies.
Okay.
I just
So,
have one quick question, if
go
it's all
ahead.
right. I don't know if I missed it, but for the no dollar limit warranty, was there a premium for that? Is that notated?
There's a slight premium, but it's not, it's insignificant to the overall cost of the project.
Thank you.
I can get you an exact number, and forward it around, if you'd like. What the percentage is of the overall cost of the roof.
No, I was just stretching. I'm done, thank you.
We said that
Okay.
before.
Thank
All
you,
right,
Dale.
so,
Thanks for reminding me, Gil.
So have we done enough damage for the evening?
I appreciate your feedback and direction, and I thank you very much, and I think we have a pathway forward. Arno, you good? And we'll talk tomorrow?
Yeah, very good, yep.
Okay.
Very clear on how to proceed here.
The 90% documents, there were 283 pages. I can assert that I've read every one of them. And I'll work with Arno to incorporate my comments.
All right,
But
so,
their boilerplate template document was very good. I was pleased with it. I thought it had all the
Good.
correct protective covenants.
all right. So Jackie, it's 6:59. Are you gonna move to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you, Arno.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm gonna